Welcome to everybody who's here, both online and in the rooms. And we'll start with, I need to know if there's are any additions or deletions to the agenda from the board members. Okay, seeing none, then at this time, I'd like a motion to adopt no, we don't need to, we've already got the agenda, sorry. All right, at this time, we have our first time for public comment. It's an opportunity for folks in the room that are not board members to make comments. We ask that you try to keep it to 3 minutes. And are there people here who would like to make a comment? Yes, Mark.
My name is Mark Weinstein. I have a prepared statement because I am not comfortable speaking in front of adults in public, kids I'm fine with. And my time to carry, so it shouldn't take more than 3 minutes, if that's what you're giving me.
Yes.
Okay, from the March 27th edition of Mountain Times, MVSU's board collector voter surveys, which is the title. Board, quote unquote, the board is in listening mode, board said. We're really hoping to get new ideas from the respondents. However, past actions of some members of board staff seem to contradict this statement. This has to be a joint process with community members and taxpayers, so they feel that they are really being heard and not just attending the infomercials that the board presented in the months leading up to town meeting day. In a February 15, 2024 email to the MVSU Director of Technology and Innovation, School Superintendent, Director of Finance and Operations, as well as the board chair, the board vice chair writes, quote, Roth, good seeing you on more morning walks to West. Is it possible to block particular email addresses? This group has become abusive in their interactions with school staff and board members, having long ago exhausted the universe of legitimate questions. They're now just lobbing baseless allegations and have crossed the line into name calling and insults. I'd like to shut down their ability to email me directly. Could you please block or let me know how to block the following senders, unquote. On the same morning, Sherry Souza emailed Ben Ford and CC'd Raphael Adonic, if that's pronunciation is right, Kerry Bristow and James Finn writing, quote, agreed, thank you, Rob, take care and be well. Later that morning, Raphael Adonic emailed Sherry Souza with a CC to Ben Ford, Kerry Bristow, and James Finn writing, I spoke to Sherry and she requested that we block emails from those folks for all our mountainviews.org users, so I've done that, unquote. In a follow-up interview with Valley News reporter the day before town meeting day, the vice chair said that the MVSU blocked 9 individuals from emailing board members and school officials due to hostile and threatening content. The vice chair then showed some of these emails or shared some of these emails with the Valley News reporter. After I contacted the Valley News reporter, she stated that the most inflammatory quote that she found was, quote, these people are crazy, unquote. She then left it up to readers to decide whether that quote rises to the level of threat or hostility. She noted that she was writing about the bond voting and reporting that the discourse around it had become contentious as town meeting day approached. Evidence of the contention was that the school board decided to block emails. She didn't get into an analysis of whether the decision had merit, just that it happened. As for herself, she noted that no journalist is going to favor random blocking of the public from communicating with public officials. I just have one last part to touch. As for why the vote failed, the answer is pretty simple. 1,570 yes votes, 45.11%, and 1,910 no votes, 54.89%. Although the fiscal year 25 budget passed with 2,115 yes and 1,300 no votes, 610 more voters voted no on the bond issue. This represents an increase of 46.92% more no votes for the bond issue, Article 7, than for the school district budget, Article 6. Thank you for letting me give that input.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else for public comment? Yes,
Hi. Hi, MBSU board members. My name is Katie Stiles, and my husband Kevin and I are the parents to a sweet, smart, funny, and kind little boy named Henry. Through the Act 166 program, Henry has attended KES for the last 2 years of school in Ms. Gerber's classroom. Both Henry and our family have loved our time at KES and formed strong bonds with his fellow classmates, KES families, his teachers, and the Killington community at large. As residents of Stockbridge, Henry's time at KES is currently being funded via the Act 166 program and by tuition paid directly by us to MBSU. Henry is slated to attend Stockbridge Elementary School for kindergarten next year, but we would like for him to continue at Killington and would like to pay a parental tuition to cover his attendance. We are asking the board to consider amending the 2016 policy on parental tuition at KES. Our home is uniquely positioned in an area that shows up as Pittsfield on Google Maps. It is at the end of a road that is designated as Pittsfield up until about 400 yards from our property line, and Henry has classmates that live less than a quarter of a mile from us and go to KES through Pittsfield School Choice Program. From our home, there is no way for us to reach any part of Stockbridge without driving through Pittsfield. Our mailing address is in Pittsfield, and we are 2 working parents who own and operate 3 businesses, all located in Pittsfield. As we started our research into this inquiry, we spoke with the Vermont AOE, who explained there was no state mandate about tuitioning into elementary school. Rather, it was a district by district decision. We know you're all heavily invested in the budget and success of the district schools and are hopeful parental tuition can provide an opportunity to offset some of the proposed tax burden the district is currently facing. My husband and I truly believe that a few yards of geographical anomaly don't outweigh the academic benefits and exceptional growth we've seen in Henry as a result of his time at KES. We are hopeful the board will consider an exception and allow for tuition to continue Henry's experience at Killington. He truly does love it there and loves his friends and teachers. Thank you for your time and consideration.
thank you, Katie. I think that will be discussed at a later time. Thank you. All right, we have a report from the superintendent, but I believe somebody else is going to give it.
Yes, you're gonna hear a lot from me with the annual report. So I asked Assistant Principal Cody Tancredi to speak about his program that the work he's been doing at the middle school and high school.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind.
Do you want me to come up here?
Sure. They don't bite often.
Yeah.
And it's early in the
I know
meeting.
these owls, the owls. All right, so I'm gonna talk specifically about some of the work we've done in our middle school throughout the year. And I want to just be clear that this isn't work that is a one-time drop-in activity, but more of this is who we are striving to be. And we have a really talented staff who's worked hard to embed these things into our curriculum and make it a part of our normal practice. Just wanted to make that clear before I start talking about these. And I actually don't really need my notes because it's such great work. I'm really excited about it. We've had, of course, behavioral incidents that happen throughout the year related to all sorts of topics. Some are easy, minor behaviors. Others are a little harder, and we have to really dive into what that work looks like. Certain topics related to equity, dehumanizing language, how we treat each other. Those things come up, and because of the good work we're doing, embedding things into our curriculum, lessons, activities, we're trying to be that proactive lane rather than always this reactive approach of what do we do when an incident occurs. So some of the things that we've done this year in our middle school specifically are our SEL teachers. Lori Smith specifically has gone into classrooms and taught lessons to students about how we treat each other, about friendship, character lessons and wellness in our wellness programs about character. We've done many restorative circles within advisory around multiple topics in our middle school. Some are following events, others are, again, that proactive lane of this is who we're trying to be, and really trying to focus on those topics of empathy, kindness, respect, and how we treat each other in our middle school. We have certain groups. Tom Emery and I work with a group of students. We talk a lot about leadership and life skills. We've worked with our middle school team with ideas about who do we bring in when there are major events. We had a professional, Dr. LaBelle Brown, that came in recently and worked with all of our middle school students and all of our middle school staff for 2 days around empathy, kindness, respect, history, the context of our language that we use and the impact that that can have on others. And I gotta say that was a really, really successful experience. I got to observe those lessons with our students and their buy-in was incredible. They were fully participating in every activity. And by the end of it, they were, shaking Dr. Brown's hand as they were walking out saying, thank you for the message that you gave today. And I actually kept a lot of those notes for the feedback they gave Dr. Brown was pretty eye-opening. But again, so Dr. Brown, when he was there, our teachers were able to work in that with quadrant. We're really trying to work with our staff about what did you want to get out of this experience with Dr. Brown? So they asked that he come in and observe some lessons that they've been working on that include topics around race and equity. And he gave feedback on their performance, and they were able to talk about, like, hey, how do I improve this lesson? What's a good idea for this? They had drop-in sessions where they could come in and just check in with them about maybe future lessons. How do I handle this situation? Overall, really great couple days with Dr. Brown. But the work, like I said, continues. And this week is Live Your Life Week. And our middle school students have planned the entire thing. It's all student-led through our middle school QSA. And I got to attend one of those sessions this morning with approximately 20 middle schoolers in my group. It was student-led, and they answered questions that were, according to Dr. Brown, we're trying to dive into that little bit deeper culture. If we know this about you, we will be less likely to say these words that might impact you. So if we know each other, right, and we connect, and that's where we're trying to go with this. So a student in my group today asked many questions, and we went around in a restorative circle approach, and they were able to give answers to those or pass. And it was just a really great experience for me to sit back and kind of watch these amazing students we have lead such a hard topic. And that was happening in every classroom in our middle school today at noon for 25 minutes. And they have planned the entire week for that 25-minute block with all of our students. So that's just a snapshot of just the work in our middle school this year. And there's probably many, many things that I'm missing. But the work is embedded into what we do every day. And that's really important. I wanted to leave that message out there. This isn't just a response. This is who we're trying to be, who we are. So, okay. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for?
Yeah, please feel free to ask a question.
Is the data showing any decrease in referrals or disciplinary actions? I know you gave this awesome presentation last year.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, our highest data point right now is class skips in the high school. We've done some really great work with our high school teachers around class skips and what's our universal steps going to be to that, and working with them to come up with those ideas. The major behaviors that may relate to HHBs, if that's kind of where you're going with that question, like a major behavior related to race, equity, dehumanizing language, that type of behavior, we have seen a decrease. Does it not exist in our school? No, it does exist, but I think that our responses have improved greatly, and I'm confident in our responses as a team and school. I would deal with those. Happy to share data anytime, but class skips are way better.
Anybody else have a question?
The work that you were doing with the middle school, is it the same for 7th, 8th?
Yep.
Or is it, and then, how do you see that continuing on through the upper grades as they continue on?
Great question, and that was something that we talked a lot about with those 2 days with Dr. Brown, was how do we continue this work? And some of the things that came up is just knowing what's happening at our middle school, being really open with that communication about here's what's happening in 7th grade, here's what we're focusing on in 8th grade, how do you continue that? Putting work out in hallways, transitions like we were doing for our 6th graders to come to our 7th grade. We're gonna have our 8th graders go to our 9th grade advisories and meet their advisors. eighth graders gonna go do a walkthrough of all their ninth grade teachers and get a little presentation by the end of the year. Building those connections. But yes, the goal would be that work continues. And aligns with our portrait of graduate and our work that we're doing. We're really aligned with that policy. We're trying to put that policy into place in our school.
Anybody else?
Oh, quick, what is QSA? What's the mouth of QSA? Was that the acronym?
First grade alliance. Yeah,
We have.
there's a high school.
Yep. They're an outstanding group of students. They are driven, respectful. They've met with me probably 10 times about the questions that they're gonna ask to make sure that everyone's gonna feel comfortable in these situations. They've done an outstanding job. I can't give them enough credit. And the two advisors, Annie, Luke, and Aaron.
Thank you, Cody.
Awesome, thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So nice to hear those encouraging reports. All right, and next we have the directors. Let's get my book here ready. Starting with the Director of Technology and Innovation, Raph.
Good evening, everyone. Two pieces I'd like to update you on tonight. I'm excited to announce that we've secured a vendor for our firewall RFP. So we will be contracting with a company out of Berlin, Vermont, called Omspeed's Computer Systems to upgrade the firewalls in all of our schools and our district locations. This is a big project. Firewalls are really essential pieces of equipment. They separate our internal network from the outside world and vice versa. So it's really important that we have up-to-date firewalls with good service contracts. This contract is for 5 years with all the licensing for that period as well. So we're taking advantage of the last pieces of our ESSER money in order to cover that and to position us for the next 5 years to be good on that front. So we're very excited about that. And the other piece I wanted to share was many of you parents may have seen, students may have seen the Quaglia surveys that went out. So we spent some time analyzing that data. This is the second year that we've done those surveys. So we now have a point of comparison and we can look at what's changed from year to year, what's going up, what's going down, and how different things are looking in different schools. So our school leadership team spent some time looking at that data recently, and we're going to continue to look at that and understand what the climate in our schools is like. So just want to let you know that the data that you all submitted is being looked at and informing some big discussions.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have a question for Raph?
I will say Raph saved me from my spreadsheet. I thought I could do this analysis very quickly. So while we realize Quaglia is great in terms of themes, they align with our portrait of graduate, and there are consistent themes between the teacher, parent, and student group. The data analysis is well beyond my special education scope, and Raph saved me with 3 days of spreadsheets and analysis, and I just want to thank him. It looks much better and much more informing than what I could ever do. So you did a great job of that.
Thank you, Raph.
And all the principals are expected to have action steps as a result of their individual schools that they'll present at the next leadership team meeting, resulting from that survey.
Great. The next report is from Shana Kalnitsky, the Director of Student Support Services.
Good evening. In addition, sorry, should I not start yet?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. In addition to the notes that I provided for the board book, I always like to highlight a few things from the department. And as Raph was talking about the Quaglia survey, I will add that in addition to principals having an action plan, our department will also consider the feedback from the Quaglia study as we look forward to what we're doing with our students. One of the topics that we've been looking at this month, I met with Meg Roylance, our occupational therapist in the district, and who's also a parent in the district. And we talked about assistive technology for our students, and it's something that we have available. Highlights of those assistive technology programs are Learning Ally, which is like an online library, but it's not only trade books, it's also student textbooks So if we think about how do students who have a reading disability access the literature opportunities in school, this is one vehicle that we can use to do it. Font size, font color, background color, the ability to change the speed that the text is read to students is adjustable. We also have something called read write, which is a text to speech technology. It's predictive. It helps students take digital notes. It can help them write outlines with a related service provider and then take it to their English class. And we realized that not only do we want students to be able to utilize these tools more independently, but we want educators to have more knowledge of how they work so they can be integrated into regular education classrooms and more accessible to these students. So we're going to be continuing to not only include them in students' daily use, but teach more educators how to use these tools effectively to support their students in class. We have also had an increase in opportunities for special educators, interventionists, and general education educators to partner to find access points and analyze data and create successful learning paths for our students. And a great example of this is Marsha Brown, who is a reading interventionist in the middle school and high school. And she provides literacy assessments so we can understand some of our students better. And these would be students who are not eligible for special education, but everybody else in the building. And she then analyzes the data and reviews it with the general education teachers and the team at the middle school and high school. And she's partnered with all the educators there to help design instruction and also create opportunities for those students to be more successful in their classes. And I'd also like to commend the special education team because after COVID, we had this big bubble of students who had been referred to special education 3 years ago. And we are in the home stretch of completing almost 70 special education reevaluations. And thanks to counselors, special educators, psychologists, related service providers, the principals, the classroom teachers, this is no small undertaking, especially with a brand new school psychologist this year and several new special educators. And this was really good work to evaluate the progress that our students had made, and so exciting to then design new instructional plans for these students and continue to monitor their success.
Thank you, Shana. Are there any questions for Shana? All right, thanks for all you do. Next, we have the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
Hi, everyone. Jennifer Settle, Director of the CIA. I get to share with you some exciting work that's happening with our teachers right now, all of which, interestingly, is grant funded. So first of all, we're planning ahead to next summer. We have 1 foot this year, 1 foot next year, 1 foot in the summer, 3 feet, I guess. And a lot of our work that happens during the summer is very important for helping the school year run successfully in our classrooms. So we try to provide stipends for groups of teachers to work. And so those stipends come with time to collaborate, essentially. But all of that takes a lot of organization. So we're advertising to teachers opportunities to collaborate on literacy and math topics. And we're gathering groups and getting all of that organized for the summer. We also have a group that's going to be planning next year's in-service days. I don't know if you've noticed, but our in-service days next year are in October and November. We don't have a March in-service day. So those days are going to be focused on data. Our teachers are going to be looking at student data in October, making plans for how they can help their students, implementing those plans, and then reanalyzing in November. And they're going to be doing it collaboratively. And so we have a group that's going to be working over the summer to figure out what those in-service days look like. So we have some stipends for that work as well. We have a math curriculum pilot design team that's just starting up. The current math curriculum we're using is no longer going to be published and is a little bit outdated. So we are considering new curricular products that we can use. And before we can even consider what to use, we have to design a whole process to do it well. So we have a group of teachers coming together right now to design a pilot. That's some great work that's happening. We also have a report card refinement team. An elementary report card is being redone. And we have some iterations out there that we've received initial feedback on, but we need more. So we have a group of teachers we're gathering right now so that we can do quicker, faster iterations to try and get that refined. I'm also traveling to each PTO at the elementary school and meeting with those PTO groups to gather some family feedback about what you find meaningful in report cards. So if you, to anyone here tonight, if you have any ideas about what you'd like to see on an elementary report card that would make the one we have right now much better, please contact your PTO reps and give them that information, and they'll be sharing that with me. Then finally, we're continuing our middle school strategic plan work, again, grant funded. It's been a year-long process where we are developing action plans for improvement in our middle school that the middle school teachers are developing alongside with me, and then we'll be passing those strategies on to our new principal and beginning that work next year.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jen?
I have a question. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Brilliant. Hey, Jen. I haven't seen an elementary school report card in quite a bit, but tying into Mr. Tancredi's work, I wonder if it isn't already on there, some social emotional scores, so that we can track, the development of empathy and collaboration and leadership and all that through the school years starting in elementary school.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it would be really interesting to look at our portrait of a graduate and see if any of the components we built into there is captured there, because we are considering adding the portrait of a graduate components to the report card. And I do believe some of the subcategories include empathy. So thinking about what that would look like in the classroom and how we could assess it, and then how we would capture that on a report card would be the important steps that this group would have to figure out. We do have an empathy aspect to the new version of the POG, so that's already a part of what we're planning to add, hopefully.
Awesome. Awesome.
But still looking for some feedback from everyone on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
And we have a report from the Director of Finance and Operations, Mr. Jim Fenn.
Good evening. I included links to updates on where we are with our budget spending. One of the things that I'm really happy to see is we're really using our new software properly now, and we've spent 40%, but we've encumbered another 45%. So we're using it as a planning tool, and it's actually working, and we have a much better idea of where we are with our budget at any point in time. So that's a big improvement. Green Mountain Power has been here off and on for the last 10 days, bringing wires across to our parking lot and hooking it up with the transformers. So we are ready for the last step, which is to install the chargers so we can start running our school buses with the blue bumpers. So watch for them after April vacation. They will be on the road.
Awesome.
And then tomorrow, as part of our investigating on how to address some of the things brought up as a result of the vote on the new building, Joe and I are meeting several board members and working with the contractor, the architect, and our owner's rep, and doing a walkthrough of the current middle high school to look at what a renovation of that building would be, what it would cost. And then we can have answers, because the answers that we have right now are based on something that was done 7 years ago, 6 years ago. And so they're old. I don't think a lot of the ideas are any different, but the prices are certainly 5 years old, and we wanted to update that. So we had better answers when we were asked questions about renovation. So we'll be doing that and asking PC Construction to put together some pricing for us.
What is the average? I'm sorry.
Tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. So, yeah, we're trying to be as small a group as we can easily be and not be too disruptive to what's going on in the school. But we have 2 or 3 board members that are joining us, and yeah.
Any questions for Jim? All right, thank you very much. And from our student board member, Owen, it's going to bridge the two reports that are in our packet.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best to dutifully follow Aiden's words, and then I'll throw in some of mine, so he's at the cross. The SAT, which is all net digital now, so new and improved, was taken by our high school students on the 20th of March. So mainly juniors. It's great that we offer that free for juniors. I think that's an incredible opportunity for all of our kids. And it was all digital. He wanted to thank teachers and administrators who helped students prepare. I'm thinking Heather Beneda and Lauren Sullivan-Justice, who offered an SAT prep course. So thank you to them, and thank you to the administrators that facilitated the test. AP exams are also coming up in the next few weeks. Preseason for high school spring sports has officially started. Well, real season has officially started now. And many teams are doing scrimmages and things like that, and that will lead them into their the bulk of their season in the next few weeks. Near the end of March, we welcomed students from our exchange trip or our exchange program with Bavaria, Germany. So they were doing a craft program. We had, I think, a number of students, I'm not sure, maybe a half dozen students in our high school for a few days. And that was great. They got an opportunity to explore our region and our program and interact with our students. So that was a cool opportunity. And then as for our language-based exchange program, some of the French exchange students have left. They're in Paris now. So that's exciting. And then kids going to Madrid will be leaving in the next few weeks. This past week, students filled out student voice surveys, those Quaglia surveys. And Aiden's Code of Conduct Working Group, I think, met and kept chipping away at the document there. And our Student Leadership Summit logistics were set. So we signed the contracts. We're in good shape for that. We got to pick the menu.
This is really important.
Coffee bar, pastries.
Chocolate cake.
Critical. And I'll say, very recently, there's been buzz. I've heard from multiple students in my grade, I'm a junior, about the idea of junior privileges. So we have senior privileges where our seniors are allowed to leave campus if they have time and they can go, maybe often to farmers, support a local business for lunch. So I think, selfishly, my friends and I are interested in that idea. So maybe that's an issue for the policy committee, but that came up recently and I thought I would bring it up. And today, our students signed up for Earth Day activities in the next few weeks. I know I will be doing some sustainable vegan muffins, so very excited for that. That's another cool tradition of ours. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Owen and Aiden. Very good. At this time, we're going to move into our time scheduled appointments. First is the annual report from our superintendent, Sherry Sousa.
And Ralph, if you would join, so Ralph's gonna help me with some of the slides. Again, he's much clearer and much more fluid in describing some of the information here. So I'm going to share my screen, and before I launch into this policy required activity, I think it's really important to for me to say that this
You were
is
talking to a kid
really-
named that? You were talking to someone? Oh, weren't you just getting fucking pissy at fucking Iona for hitting on your fucking man?
Raina? Thank you, Raina. All right. And there's that. So I just wanted to share, so this is a board required policy to have an annual report around the strategic plan as well as some other aspects of the work we do. We begin preparation for the annual report in January. Myself, Raina, other members of the leadership team are all involved in collecting the information. What I really want to say is this annual report is not about central office. This annual report is about the work that happens in our schools every day, the commitment and passion of our faculty, our willingness and availability of our students, It's a time I want to be in the classroom more. I hear feedback from teachers, we want to see you in schools more. When I see the body of work, it is just so exciting to bring together these statistics and to present it to you. I think back to when we merged and all the Act 46 meetings we had, and there's a few left to participate in that. There was really an emphasis that each campus maintained a unique personality. And I think that comes through really clearly in this annual report. Each campus, all of our elementary schools, middle school and high school have their unique flavor specific to the communities they live in, the resources they have, and the faculty and leadership at each building. So this is an opportunity for me to share the work of our buildings and to celebrate the progress we've made and also to recognize the work that's continued to need to happen. So I thought this year of all years, let's put the middle school on our front slide. We've had elementary for a number of years. This is our proud and exciting 8th grade team on the top of Mount Tom at the start of the school year. Also to note, this is year 5 of our strategic plan. I never thought we'd get here and we're here now. So this is the last time we will be reporting out on this document. So within this presentation, we have a message from our board chairs. We'll look for one last time at the original portrait of a graduate. I have some graduate profiles that I'd like to highlight. I think it's important to note where our students go after they finish with us. There's some recognitions of success, both with our students and our faculty. The board has highlights of work they've done. Going through each of the strategic plan goals, looking at student success, learning environment, community alliances, culture, and foundational systems. I do a strategic plan report card that you can look at. We'll talk about some of the equity work we've done and also some of the summary data and finally the superintendent's recommendations. What's important is this is not only a communication tool for us within the district. Often when I speak to people who are applying for positions here, they've looked at our annual report. Families who move here look at our annual report. So this is really a document that's beyond our district as a tool to communicate what we value and the work we're doing. This is our Reading Elementary students. So Carrie, if you I bolded some of the things I thought of, but this is Carrie and Ben's letter around the work of last year.
Yes, so we had some various things that we took note of for what was going on in the reading and the math instruction initiatives that were started, and the foundational agreements, the commitment to try to reach 90% reading proficiency for students in our district. We also approved additional administrative and resources for our elementary schools to address some of the social emotional concerns that we were hearing about from many parents as well as board members. We did replace the roof at Killington and upgraded the heat system at Woodstock Union High School after the loss of some classrooms due to lack of heat. And we're thankful for the commitment of the board members and of our exceptional administrators and staff and educators. And we feel that we're making some progress in addressing some of these areas where maybe not as much board attention has been paid in the past. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And, oh, come on. There we go. Again, this is the last year of this portrait of a graduate. We've done some revisions, the design team, and worked on this last year. The goals that are currently areas in each our current portrait of a graduate include academic excellence, critical thinking and problem solving, skillful communication, self-direction, and stewardship. And these are the cutest skateboarders I've ever seen. And I'm sorry, I just can't let it go. I'm not a pre-K early ed kid, but these guys are pretty cool looking. So in terms of some of our graduate, just wanted to highlight a few graduates that we didn't highlight previously. Jenna Majeski, who graduated from Northeastern and is the second lieutenant in the U.S. Army. Julian Shirting, who is currently working for global product management for Nike in Oregon. Katie Wexler, who graduated in 2008 and attended Clemson University, is currently in the Peace Corps. We had Gordon McMaster, University of Vermont, sophomore engineer, and Mike Cub Scout when he was in elementary school, just saying. He was an Eagle Scout. And then Hudson Maxim, class of 23, who is in the Vermont Registered Apprenticeship Program with St. Cyr Plumbing and Heating. This link also highlights other graduates and the work they've done post-graduation from Woodstock Union High School. In terms of our own district and celebrations, our yearbook was named Jocelyn's 2023 National Yearbook Program of Excellence. We have 2 teachers who happen to be here tonight, who Andy Wood and Allison Green, who were selected as members of the Equitable Climate Action Partnership Teacher Program. It goes on, but I had to shorten it. Patty Kelly and Heather Veneta did a session at the National Council of Mathematics. Woodstock Elementary was a PBIS School of Distinction. Really important, Woodstock Union High School, AP School Honor Roll recognition with a silver award. Incredibly commendable. The number of kids who are doing AP is just beyond recognition. And 2 of our own, Aiden and Owen, presented at the Ithaca Diversity and Inclusivity Symposium last summer. It's a lot of fun. And this year we did something new. We really wanted to recognize the seniority of our faculty and staff. And so we provided golden apples for those who have taught in the district for 30 and more years, as well as Will Chamberlain, who has been a custodian at the high school. I think he's had 1 sick day in those 34 years. Barnard Academy has 30 plus teachers, also teachers who have been here for 20 plus years and 10 plus years, all received recognition on International Teacher Day. Good faces. In terms of board highlights, they affirmed the district goal of 90% proficiency in literacy and mathematics by grade 3 and continuing. We did revise the strategic plan. It was a lot less painful than I thought it was going to be. I appreciate that greatly. We completed some much needed renovations and repairs in our elementary schools, as well as the high school. We approved educational personnel to support a positive climate in our schools. Cody just did a beautiful presentation on that. So policies to further guide the work of the board in many areas. Those policies are greatly appreciated by the faculty, staff, and administration, and encourage our school board members to take active roles on committees and increase their voice in our meetings by means of a monthly written report. That's a very unique aspect across the state of Vermont. So things to be proud of. And so now we'll go into each of the critical focus areas. First, in terms of student success, my highlights that I pulled from the data that we received, all students, as Owen said, at Woodstock Union High School had access to the SAT at no cost. 87% of our high school students took more than the required 3 math classes. That's pretty impressive. Half of our high school students are enrolled in an AP class. I was speaking to superintendents from our region. We're rare to have as many AP classes, and there's some schools that don't even have AP calculus. So this is something, a real badge of honor. And then the majority of our sophomore class students participate in a career shadow day, which is an opportunity for them to go out in the community, make connections, explore future opportunities. And so these are just some of the data that we look at annually. We had 18 new students inducted into our National Honor Society. 6 students are in dual enrollment, so both college and high school. Again, the 49% of 9th to 12th grade students are enrolled in 1 or more AP classes. We have 2 students who are in the early college program. 17 students last year received the seal of biliteracy. And I think it's really important to look at our Woodstock Union High School school profile. So if you click on that link, really gives a nice description, pretty clear what our attributes as a high school, what we have to really celebrate in our program. So I encourage people to take a look at that. Ralph, could you speak to this for Ed?
Yeah, so one of the pieces that we had in our last strategic plan was looking at how our graduates do when they leave our school and go on to post-secondary education. So in order to look at that data, we've partnered or we've subscribed to the National Student Clearinghouse. The National Student Clearinghouse is a consortium, an organization that works with 3,600 colleges and post-secondary institutions across the United States and Canada. So what we do is we provide them a list of graduates every year And they give us data back around who has enrolled in any post-secondary education, and then over time, who's persisted in how they've done. Do they graduate? Do they drop out at some point? What you see here, this is the first time that we've had multiple years of data. So the blue line is just the percentage of students who have enrolled in a college or post-secondary educational opportunity immediately in the fall after high school. We see it by class there. And then the red line, which is kind of new, is the 6-year graduation rate for those two classes that we have data on. So this is just a helpful sort of lens for us to look at and for us to understand how those students who are deciding to pursue post-secondary education are performing.
I'm sorry.
So this going down post-COVID, dip there is.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, we can sort of speculate as to sort of why we have some ups and downs there. But yeah, you see that down for the last year there.
And it also is one of our smallest graduating class, which is 65, as like this year, it's about 85. So again, when you have such a small N, having change, but I think what this has really pushed us to think about, and Rath and I had this conversation, and the design team was really clear. How do we describe post-secondary success? Are we really limiting how we have those conversations and how we describe what a student looks like who is successful upon graduation? And I think this is probably the last time we're going to have this data. I think we want to look at a much more broad vision of what it is to be successful after high school. And I think that's something that we want to think about and we want to describe better, because should not be the only measure of what success is. I have one child who did it in 4 years, and I have one that never finished, and I think they're both very successful adults. I think we just need to really think about that. There's a lot of things impacting college, the cost, the choices. I think high school students are really taking what happens after high school very seriously, more so than I did at my age, and really thinking about who they want to be, what success means for them. And I think that's something we're going to explore some more in the coming years. Other questions about this one? So you have so much better at this data thing than me. In terms of our learning environment, hydronic heating system for the middle and high schools, the new cold roof for Killington Elementary. It was a hot roof, and that's why it kept melted all the time. We had all the ice filled out in the front of the high school, so now it's a cold roof. We have design drawings completed for the proposed new middle and high schools. And as Jim said, he received 3 grant-funded electronic buses that are parked out front. So here are photographs of the new heating system at the middle school and high school. There's that beautiful new roof on Killington and a slide of the design for the proposed new middle and high school. In terms of alliances, all the elementary schools have diverse connections with their individual communities. And there was evidence of more than 50 community partners at the middle and high schools. Here's just a sampling. Each of the principals submitted a list of the kinds of things that are groups that they are connecting with, from VINS to White River Partnership to the Barnard Fire Department, magic show that was sponsored by a WUHS alumni. There's a lot of different things, photo gallery at Liquid Art. So I think this really highlights how each of our elementaries are keeping their unique perspective in view and really connecting with those around them to support the kind of work they're doing in each of their campuses. And the return of the Thanksgiving dinner at the Prosper Valley and Woodstock Elementary combined. At the middle school and high school, you can see the 9th grade has a food security project with Hannaford Markets, Upper Valley Haven. We have our continuing and ongoing relationship with NUVU, who is working with the Northeast Temperate Network of the National Park Service. We also have other work with the Community Service, National Park Service, Thompson Senior Center, Norman Williams Public Library. C3, the Center for Community Connection, is an integral part of our high school, providing experiences beyond our classroom, make sure students can explore all kinds of interest areas. That's a lively. I love that photograph. That is so high school. If you can't see yourself in the art, then it really isn't art. So that picture is one of my favorite ones from a visit to the hood at Dartmouth. And then craft, you can see again, that really unique, exciting program that's offered by Kat Robbins and Janice Bobo, where students are continuously connecting with a wide variety of resources in our community. In terms of culture, we have our Student Leadership Summit for the third time with more than 100 participants, 20 from other high schools. So we're really trying to make this Leadership Summit not specific to just Woodstock Union High School, but high schools across this region. And each elementary school provides unique leadership opportunities for their students. And here's some examples. Prosper Valley, their council opportunities, 5th and 6th grade were there, and their mentoring program with both Woodstock Elementary and Reading Elementary. They have junior librarians, they have fire marshals. Wes has 48 4th graders participating in the leadership club with the SEL team, the Wildcat Club, and 85 2nd and 3rd graders, students participating in the mentoring program with Prosper Valley. We had 88 Woodstock Union High School students attend the Leadership Summit and 20 students from other districts. These are some statistics that RAF combined in terms of our sports teams. You want to just describe that a little bit?
Yeah, so policy committee is having some conversations around athletics. And so with the help of Sarah Cook from our data team and Jack Boimer, we pulled some data just about the number of students who participate in sports. I think it's a very high percentage. I think you'll see with 63% of students playing a fall or a winter sport and 32% playing both of those. Spring sports weren't included in this list yet, just because the signups hadn't occurred when we pulled the data, but we'll certainly include that in coming years. Just looking at it, adding a lens of equity to look at it as well, looking at the number of economically disadvantaged students who played a sport versus those who were not economically disadvantaged. It's a lens that we pulled up to look at a lot of our data to make sure that we're making programs that are accessible to all students. And then lastly, just a list of the sports and the participation this past fall and winter.
And of course, our state champion girls snowboard team, once again, we have some of the best women snowboarders, and our Nordic men's team, who are also state champions this winter. Yeah. Foundational systems. Teachers of reading in grades 7 through 12 participating in training for knowledge building, comprehension, fluency, and vocabulary. That is not happening anywhere else. Jen just applied for a grant. I know we didn't get the grant because we're doing so much work in terms of literacy. And so the money's going to other districts who aren't doing the heavy lifting we're doing, but that is really powerful. So this is not just an elementary initiative. This is a full district-wide initiative. And what's important too, the story of attrition. So our level of faculty attrition is at 15% for the last year. Again, in this time and age where teaching is really a challenging experience, and can be exhausting quite often, that we are able to keep as many teachers as we do is really a testament to their commitment to our students. Other things to recognize, 75% of our faculty either have a master's or PhD. I think speaks to our commitment again for professional growth for our teachers, as well as the way the grid has been developed so that we really provide opportunities for teachers to receive a master's degree and begin that advanced training. I think that's really commendable. But you can see the number 86 credit-bearing courses outside of PD opportunities. We mentored 12 teachers, so those were the 12 new teachers this year. I think that we will have less than that this year. We'll retain more teachers. We are working better at our formal evaluations. That wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. But you can see 26 teachers of math and grades pre-K through 6 participated in the Math Pack training. So that work is comprehensive and across the district. I know Allison, you had so many good pictures, just had to keep pulling them in, I'm sorry. If you click on this, and I'm gonna do it really fast, and I hope I can jump back. This is our report card. So because I'm a special educator, I just have to do this. We have every year looked at where we are on every single strategy, whether the work began, was initiated, underway, or achieved. I think first you can notice that there is such a long list of items that we had put on our strategic plan. We didn't do that mistake again. And to note, right smack in the middle of that was COVID. So if you look at this list and you can see how much green and blue is actually in there with these many items to cover in 5 years with COVID, I'm really proud of how far we got in the work we did. And that many of the work pieces that we've begun will continue to have in place. So now I'm really hoping I can. All right, I'm gonna have to, I'm not fast enough. All right, I'm gonna go this way and that way and then come back. Hey. All right, so if you want to look at that more detail, it really shows where we are and all those strategies. And you gotta have a picture with and I'm sorry, this is one of my favorite pictures because the young man with the AC/DC t-shirt and you can't really see it, but that's a John Deere hat. And I'm like, this is Vermont and you gotta love it. All right, so other disparate work. So beyond the strategic plan, there's other work that our team has taken on in terms of equity and racism. And it's really important that we report out on that in a very transparent way as well. And I'm gonna ask Raf to talk about the slides again.
Yeah, so there's two graphs here, and I just want to kind of walk you through what you're seeing here because there's an interesting story that's being told here. So when we look at our academic data, we want to look at it through the lens of some of these areas where there are some disparities historically. And typically we see students receiving free and reduced lunch versus those not receiving free and reduced lunch have some very different academic outcomes. So what you'll see, this data was pulled from our STAR data in this past winter. So on the left is proficiency. So proficiency you can think about as sort of like a track analogy. It's like the high jump, right? You either clear the bar or you don't. Doesn't tell you how close you are to the bar, doesn't tell you how much growth you made, how much better you got. It's just, are you over the bar or are you not? And so you can see in that graph, this is a very typical graph, unfortunately, where at a lot of schools you see where there's really big differences between students receiving free reduced lunch and their level of proficiency in reading and math and students who don't receive free reduced lunch and their level of proficiency. So this is a very common graph that we see a lot that is a trend for many, many years. The additional piece that we wanted to add this year is this idea of growth. So proficiency is just that cut measure, but it doesn't measure growth. It doesn't measure whether students are moving towards where we want them to be. And so we're fortunate that the STAR assessments have a measure of growth, which is nice because it compares a student to his or her academic peers nationwide. So these peers are students in the same grade with similar achievement history. So these are students who've scored similar. And so that means if a student gets 10 more points on an assessment, we're like, is that good or bad? We don't really know. We can look at the growth and say, oh, we can see where that will be in terms of a nationwide group of peers. So this is the first time that we've looked at the data in this way for growth. And what I hope you notice is that there is not a huge difference between students receiving free and reduced lunch and students who don't receive free and reduced lunch. That's really interesting because a lot of times when we look at those measures, we see differences. So that's one important piece. The other is that you'll notice that all of these groups in terms of growth are above 50. So 50 is sort of the number that we want to be because that means that the student is making the average amount of growth compared to their peers nationwide, right? They're right in the middle. They're making just as much growth as 50% of the students there. So on average, both students receiving free reduced lunch and those not receiving free reduced lunch are making more growth than average. So this is a pretty compelling story. I think it's important to kind of take these two pieces together because in order to change the proficiency, there's going to need to be a lot of growth, right? Some of our students who are struggling and are a little behind, they're going to need greater growth in order to reach those goals that we've set for them. But this was a really exciting way to see that this is one area where we don't see those big differences like we do.
And how many years have we been doing the STAR test?
We've been doing it for 5 years, maybe.
Okay.
4 years.
Do we have any data on like getting kids over the bar?
I believe Julie Brown does with like specific students. I think she's done some sort of even deeper dives down into individual students and sort of looking at, well, what are the pieces that need to be in place for this student to achieve that proficiency level. And so she's been looking at it at a very individual level for students.
And this is collapsed data. So, we're doing the majority of the work, K3, we're changing our strategies on our upper grades, but this is grades 3 through 10. So really, when you think of the N and all the different kids we're describing by this, really is like our first kind of inkling that we are moving in the right direction. We've just started this work at ours the last year with a new curriculum this year. So to begin to see growth levels. And I think for me, what's exciting too, I want those free news for lunches, those students to grow at a 53. I also want students who are coming in reading to continue to grow. We do have a lot of students who arrive in our door who have lots of good skills, but our job is to make sure they continue to develop those skills. And that growth is happening. So there's a lot in that makes me excited. And again, it's our first little canary in the coal mine saying, okay, you're having, it's the trends that we want to be having. And that we could be really proud of. So, and asking Raph any other questions. Some of the other equity data we look at, 30% of our students have been identified as economically disadvantaged. That's up 18%. So we were worried in the last few years that we were really losing a sector of our student population. We weren't having kids signing up for free. We were serving lunch to everybody. So we're finally, with a new way of collecting this information, having a more accurate representation of our free and reduced lunch or economically disadvantaged students. And a 30% population, to me, is a much more healthy community. So I'm glad to see that, not that they're economically disadvantaged, but that we have more diversity economically in our communities. We have half of those students are in leadership positions or economically disadvantaged. Half of those students are enrolled in AP classes. That's something we really want to continue to build, but it is up 11% from the previous year. 74% of those students are involved in our disciplinary action. 74% of our disciplinary units involve male students. That's down 7%. So the conversations that we began as a result of looking at that data last year have already begun to have an impact.
We asked this last year, are these frequent repeaters? Or are they?
I'm gonna ask the experts who are the ones having those conversations every day. Aaron and Brandon.
I don't know, it's a district number that we have, as far as the percentage. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one, Elliot. Okay.
Yes, it's not uncommon for same student to.
Right, that's, I think.
Repeat behavior.
Yeah.
So it doesn't.
It's not uncommon.
Right, so the number doesn't exactly tell it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it could be.
But I still think it is, the conversation we've been having is around how do we respond to behavior that may be different than what we would expect in a classroom. And so male versus female, but I think there's a behavioral presentation that we talk about and how are we engaging with those students. And I know Cody's led a group with Raph and the middle school and high school having that. Aaron and I have been collecting data at the middle school, but really having conversations with our male students about what their experience is and what we can do to make sure they have voice and engagement and heard and movement. And that all came from reviewing this data, which was really helpful. Thank you, Raph, for bringing that.
And that 7% decrease, there's also a 7% decrease overall, right? It's not just that girls are getting worse and so boys are looking better.
Would you think?
That's also hard to tell. We've changed how we collected data, so we have far more incidents reported in our system that we're looking at. So that's another data point that's hard to know whether that's gone down.
Yeah, and major versus minors. I mean, the majority of in the middle school and high school is cell phone and skipping. The minority are those high level state reportable incidents, though they occur. Last week was an anomaly, but it was a hard week. So they're still high school students and they're still taking risky behaviors and we still need to be there. But I think that the kinds of behaviors we see are ones that are, and Cody, I'm speaking for you, that through our restorative practices and conversations, and again, attending to it at the middle school, developing relationships then, giving students that ability to talk about and bring, rather than acting out, I know an adult, I can have a conversation. They'll listen to me. All those pieces, starting as soon as they enter the middle school and high school, is really critical. Changes the culture. Kinds of things we see.
Going up one line.
Sure.
What kinds of economic supports do we give students for taking AP tests? Like if we're having, yeah.
We also pay for the AP tests.
Okay.
Yep.
Not for all of them.
Not for all of them.
There's what we pay for one per each should get one paid for, and then the college board significantly cuts down the cost for people in categories.
In terms of our BIPOC students, 9% of our MVSU students identify as BIPOC. It's every year we've gone up one click. Our faculty and staff, only 3%, so that number has decreased. We continue to look for diverse faculty, different experiences. It's an incredibly challenging market for teachers. So that's something that we continue to work hard on. 5% of our students in leadership positions identify as BIPOC. Only 17% of the disciplinary incidents at MVSU school involve BIPOC students, and 9% of students enrolled in AP classes identify as BIPOC.
Is that number up, the last one?
The AP classes, I think that's been pretty consistent. Yeah, thank you, Karen. In terms of actions taken, I just really want to highlight the work of the Late Start Wednesdays. I know this has been a challenge for some families, but that is when our teachers are really looking at implementation of our EID policy. And that's when they're doing the individual work. They can either select a session that we've trained, we're offering professional guidance, or people can select and develop their own plans. And so this is just a real cross list of some of the things teachers worked on: restorative practices, literacy as social justice, culturally responsive music education, book reading on poverty and health, impact of removing affirmative action to college admissions, aligning science lessons with EL curriculum, and teaching preschool with an equity lens. So those are some of the topics, and it's a long list. And teachers at the end really have to justify how this reinforces our current equity, inclusion, and diversity policy. And the last part of the annual report is the superintendent's report. And this is the part that's required again by the board to look at our tuition, our enrollment, our financial pieces, as well as our how our students are doing with their scores on the state testing, and then on terms of how they're compliant with the strategic plan. And so I use this slide all the time. So when we talk about what are we teaching and what's our teaching for next year and how full our schools are going to be, this is the data and enrollment, again, taken from the February board report. When we talk about how many students will be entering Prosper Valley, you can see if you combine Reading with West, that's 52 students. That's a major change from the 34 that are currently in there. So, and it also really shows, if you look at the numbers down a column, I think Killington's a great example. Grade 2, we have 15, and grade 8, and grade 3, we have 8. Having such a range of size of classes makes it really challenging. Our teachers have to be so nimble. You never know how many students you're going to have year to year, what the student population is going to be like. It is a challenge annually for principals and teachers to think about what is next year going to look like, because it can be so different year to year. As well as in the high school, you can see again, our 7th and 8th grade, 65, 64, that's smaller than it had been in the past. And then that bump up in grade 9 as we begin to collect students from other districts, 86, 80. Grade 11 is 76, smaller. That's post-COVID group that we talk about. And then our graduating class of 2024, 83 students. Senior, junior privileges. Mr. Corsi, you and I have to talk. You'll feel differently next year. In terms of student staff ratios, I think the board has been really helpful. You can see second to the bottom column, a row, really consistent in terms of how many teachers to students across, pretty more so than we have in previous years. You can see the increase in administration, administration at Woodstock Elementary, 1 to 127, And we have over 200 students in that building. In terms of our cost per student, you can see some variability, West being the lowest, Reading with the most, but around the middle, the median there is pretty consistent, around 20,000, 21,000, 19, pretty consistent across Barnard, Killington, Prosper Valley, and the middle school and high school. Looking at our Vermont VCAP score, or Cognia. Last year was the first year we administered Cognia. We didn't have a lot of state support. It was rushed out pretty quickly. We do have some variability around scores, and that we're looking at, and we will, some schools are already started the Cognia testing, if I'm right, and some will finish up after break. Again, then we'll have some better ability to compare our scores in EL and math and science. You can see Barnard was above the district average in both ELA math and science. So in terms of student outcomes, basically what I just said, that we've seen patterns of strengths and challenges were observed across, with Barnard performing above district averages in both math and ELA, as well as science. I think it's really important for us to get a second year of data. We don't have comparisons from across the state. We've heard some things that maybe we'll see something, but Agency of Education Vermont, it would be nice to be able to compare not only with between our buildings, but across the state of Vermont on Cognia. Financial. So this is a complex algorithm of school board members who weren't here before, but basically every year we look at our average per pupil cost. We calculate what 120% of that annual per pupil cost is. Then for 3 years, we average what those 120% are, and then we see if any of our schools are above that. And for the second year, Reading Elementary was above that, the number based on that algorithm. And that's how the policy has us talk about financials in the district. Enrollment, while overall enrollment in the district has remained consistent, data shows that growth is occurring in the elementary grades and at grade 9. There continues to be variability from year to year, with the greatest growth in our pre-K programs and at 9th grade. And so this is the last paragraph that I always write. I know, Allison, I'm sorry.
I was leaving anyway.
So this policy requires the superintendent to make a recommendation regarding the sustainability of each of our campuses based on enrollment, student outcome, and cost, as well as their alignment with the current strategic plan. All of our campuses are maintaining our enrollment. And based on 1 year of state data, there is some variability in student outcomes. Comparison to this spring's data will allow for greater insights. While Reading's per student costs exceed the district average for a second year, I believe that Reading Elementary School allows all of our elementary classrooms to maintain a healthy class size that provides the greatest opportunities for positive student outcomes. I recommend no action be taken at this time by the board. I think when we think about the students who are current in Reading Elementary, if for any reason we were looking at moving those students, there would be significant impact on class sizes across the district. And I am thinking of our teaching and learning policy. I think that would be a great challenge. So that's my personal opinion and recommendation at this time for your consideration. And so again, we have great communication tools from our principals. This is the link to our principal newsletters, so that you can really be in touch with the kinds of activities and the quality programs and the things that our students are doing. And I always want to, at the end of the annual report, thank all the organizations that support, as you know, Jen said in all the work she's doing beyond the budget, but is grant funded. Our taxpayers support us strongly past our budget. In addition, we have many other groups that support our work and again, add to the capacity and the creativity of our program. And I think it's important to recognize them in our annual report. Questions? Thoughts? I'll go back and just look.
Matt has a question.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thanks, Sherry. Really appreciate it. What fantastic things we're doing as a district. I do have a few follow-up items maybe for a future meeting. On slide 14, when we showed the decrease from 71% to 56% in post-secondary enrollment after their first year of graduation. Mentioned it was a smaller class, but I don't think that would really explain it. Is it possible to dig in a little deeper and figure out maybe why the 2023 class had such a lower postgraduate enrollment? Again, not for right now, but maybe a future meeting.
Sure, Matt.
And then the VT-CAT cognitive results, I know we just have 1 year of data, but it would be great if we could see those results once the 23-24 data come in. Do you have an expectation of when those results might come in? I know some of the testing is still going on.
When do we typically, when the state will release them?
Yeah, there's one of the so one of the challenges with it is the state embargoes the data for a period of time. And they do this because they've had to make changes that we don't see behind the scenes. They don't want us releasing scores that are inaccurate. This embargo period sometimes has lasted months. Sometimes it's been embargoed until many months. So I think the hope is that we would see the data over the summer, but we don't know.
Okay, I would just ask, once you have it, Raf, if you could share it with the board, that would be great. And then my last thing is just I think just a couple slides ago, the quote was that enrollment is consistent. And I know we just did a bit of a deep dive in the last board meeting a month ago, and it looked pretty clear that enrollment was declining, especially when you back out the pre-K and compare it to previous years. So I would just note that, anything we can do proactively, that like we've talked about with the new build to bring kids into our district, maybe meeting with some of the sending towns, I would highly encourage that. And that's all my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt.
Anybody else? Yes, Josh.
So just a quick question, because I wasn't part of the board when Plymouth and Bridgewater was shut down as schools, but just because I don't know the numbers, where were they for cost per pupil in comparison to where Reading stands right now?
We didn't do an analysis back then.
Okay.
So we weren't collecting, we were individual districts, both Bridgewater and so Plymouth was not part of this issue when Plymouth closed.
Yeah.
They joined post that, and then when Bridgewater, and again, that was a decision based on Pomfret and Bridgewater made the decision to combine because of some of the facility needs in Bridgewater.
Yeah, no, I was just curious.
So we weren't collecting the data at that point, but good question, Josh, thank you.
I recall that Plymouth was going down almost into the teens.
Yeah.
In the number of students they had
Yeah.
for their elementary school.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't sure what the per pupil cost was. I just wanted to have that knowledge compared to what Reading's at 26,000.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Sherry. That was quite comprehensive and it's all linked in our agendas. So if you want to go back and look again and have other questions, you should feel free to direct them to Sherry and she'll send them along to others if need be. Thank you. All right, now we have the CIP team and Jen Settle to approve. Oh, do we need? We don't need to approve your report.
No. Every year, when we put in for our federal money through title, we also have to complete a form called a CIP, Continuous Improvement Plan. For us, it's very easy because we're always looking at our data and we're always setting goals. And so I pretty much just pluck those goals that we already have and put them on the form and submit them. So I linked it here and the feds are now requiring boards to approve our CIPs before we submit them. So
Sherry, can you put that up on the screen on the agenda?
In a minute, so I don't have the agenda. Do you want to put that up?
I think people might want, if they haven't had a chance to see it yet. I looked at it, but I don't know if there's any things you want to highlight Jen, in that?
Well, we're really familiar with our math and ELA proficiency goals. So there are two categories of goals we have to provide. One's in academic success, and we have our math and literacy ones. And then the other category is in safe and healthy schools. And so we. Yeah.
That's what I get it.
I have it up. Do you want me to share my screen?
I've got it.
Good job.
Thank you.
I know, that was impressive. Yeah, like a ninja.
And so what we have to do is just provide a goal. And we tend to keep these goals very broad so that as throughout the course of the year, as we have funding needs arise, we can fit them within our goals. And so we have goals, some ideas for how to enact upon those goals, some data we would collect and how we might support that goal within our district. So the first one is in safe and healthy schools. And then the next one is in academic achievement of student success. It's a hoop, but it's a helpful hoop because we want to make sure that we're spending our money in appropriate ways that match what our data tells us we need. So that's what this document is.
All right, does anyone have any further questions before we vote? I think we're okay to then, would somebody make a motion to approve the continuous improvement plan?
I'll move to approve the CIP for
Corinne,
FY 25.
thank you, Corinne. Is there a second?
I'll second.
John Williams, thank you. All in favor of accepting the continuous improvement plan grant, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is approved. Great, thank you. All right, at this time now, the board is going to take some minutes to discuss the MBSD survey result. Ben has prepared some information for us to consider to see what things there came up in that 1,400 persons answered the survey out of the 3,500 voters that voted. So we feel we have a reasonably complete list of concerns and or positive comments that were made.
Thank you, Carrie. And I've got a presentation. I just realized that I had not joined the Zoom meeting, so I'm joining now. And Sherry, if you could make me a presenter.
Raina?
Raina, okay.
She's there.
Great. When I join?
I got you. Is she making?
I'm connecting.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so let me see.
Okay.
So you should get it on it. Into unquote at the beginning of the presentation. Okay, this is a night where the board looks at very dense slides, apparently.
But I have cute kids.
Yeah, I don't have any pictures in mind, but hopefully this will be an insightful walk through the survey that was put out after the bond vote. Just as a kind of an overview here of what we're going to go through tonight, just looking at the format and the questions and some of the rationale behind why we asked the questions that we did. Then we're going to look at some of the demographics, the overall numbers. I won't bury the lead. We got over 1,400 responses to this survey, and you think that we had about 3,550 vote, 3,550. That's an immense number of responses. So by any measure, that's a very successful number in terms of participation. Then we're going to look at the three kind of categories of voters. We had people identify how they voted in order to kind of ask the question why people voted the way that they did. And so yes, no, and undecided. We'll take a look at some of the rationale behind why people were saying they voted the way that they did, and then look at some sample comments that kind of represent some of those rationales. And then I think maybe hopefully this process, what we're really looking for, at least my opinion, is that it's ideas and suggestions of people who want to be involved in the process and have some ways that we can kind of move the ball then we're absolutely all ears, and we've got a slide there kind of, collecting those, what we've got today. And then looking at the next steps. So, the formatted questions, this is very dense, but this is essentially, the format itself was, we used SurveyMonkey, using one of our community volunteers, kind of, facile with that approach, helped us put out the survey itself. We distribute it on social media, school newsletters, community forums, listservs in all of our communities. Sam helped us from the communications committee, so thank you, Sam. Next are the questions of the survey, and they're probably like 8 or 10 as you step through, but they essentially boil down to 3 things. First, just an easy question: what town are you located in? Some responses, I think people were a little bit tense about that, at least some perspectives that we got, and we certainly weren't thinking of this as, was the board trying to like unveil, who was voting in what ways, in certain towns when like the statute for unified school districts doesn't really provide for that. That certainly wasn't our intent. We were really just trying to ease people into the survey to say, okay, where are you from? The next question was, how did you vote? And then assurances there of anonymity, and that was absolutely adhered to. We did receive a ton of data and a good bit of personal data, so we had to be very careful in terms of how we shared that data. It was Carrie, myself, the community volunteers who helped us actually administer the survey, and some members of the administration. Bryce Samuel as well was part of the process. But this question is essentially the same for each category. It's, what was it that ultimately led you to vote the way you did? And then if you were on the fence or torn, tell us why. And the thinking there was to really prompt an open-ended response to get people just kind of speaking about, their experience with the vote. And having that open-ended response enabled us to kind of hopefully get some insights that we wouldn't have otherwise had if we were kind of saying, pick this box. And then the third question there is, do you want to be part of the process as we work in the coming weeks to bring the next vote proposal to the community? Do you want to be involved? And then if people said yes, we said, what's your contact info? So just an overview of the responses. I'm going to click over to this screen so you can see, in terms of what, towns people were located in. And here again, we had 1,404 responses to the survey. And as you can see, this is pretty representative of, just population in general. I thought it was interesting that we had a number of responses from individuals outside of the district, so people who wouldn't have been voting because, they live outside. But anyway, by far and away, the most responses came from Woodstock, then Pomfret, Barnard, and then the other towns had less participation. Then in terms of how did you vote? Almost a real 50-50 here, right? You had 583 people who responded, said that they voted yes, 580 said no, and then a pretty healthy collection of undecided or people who said they didn't vote because they weren't eligible to vote. And that was a category that we thought we might get maybe some students responding, right? Not old enough. But there were, various reasons for why, people identified as not being eligible, not registered, not living in the district. And then in terms of, how for the people who weren't eligible, not a ton of responses here. How would you have voted if you could have voted? 42 saying they would have voted yes, 55 said they would have voted no. And then we'll get into these narrative responses for, why did you vote the way that you did? And then let's see, and then people wanting to be a part of the process. Thought this was really interesting. And this kind of happened in a couple of places, right? Where people said, yeah, I voted yes. What would you want to be part of the process? People were identifying there as they went through, but we wound up getting, I believe, 193 plus, what's that, 149. So yeah, well over 300 people saying, yeah, I'd like to be part of the process. Not everybody gave their email once they were prompted for it, but we have a literal legion of people who are wanting to be part of this going forward, which is pretty cool. Okay, so getting back to the kind of unpacking some of the results, we see. Yeah, Billy.
Do you think that the people who are ineligible are non-homesteaders?
Yeah, there's a good number there. I'll show you. There's a sample comment from somebody who said, "Yeah, I'm fine. We've been second homeowners for a long time, and certainly we're represented."
And tuition families.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack the yes voters. So I have a couple slides here for each of these categories of just kind of the reasons, and these are roughly rank ordered. We didn't, so Carrie and I have spent a lot of time with this data, right? And, you know, reading every response and getting a sense of kind of people's reasons. And these certainly aren't the only reasons, they're the most common. But, you know, the number one reason I would say, and Carrie, you can keep me honest from your own review of the data, or Sherry for that matter, was really people just saying the age and the condition of the current facility and the need for a new school building. That was the most often cited. From there, I think the most common was just people saying, I have kids who will go to the school, right? Then it was, there was a strong sentiment that the project would only get more expensive over time. Like, we can't afford to wait. It was something that we saw a lot. So a financial concern, like some urgency around it. Safety and health concerns, obviously, you know, the school layout or, you know, toxic sort of substances, you know, so showed up a lot as motivating people to vote yes. School tours were cited as something as being very helpful. The importance of having a middle school or high school in the community and not letting the building fail, that also showed up very prevalently. And then the next few are just kind of philosophical support of public education, civic responsibility to provide public education, education being a good investment. This was affirming for me, the tax calculator, helping people to decide, people running their numbers and saying that they got comfortable with it. Then the notion that, you know, strong schools attract young families, also around keeping property values up, kind of demand for housing. Some shout outs for the school board, trust and appreciation for the process and how thorough things were in the presentations we provided. And then I'd say the last one that was, you know, pretty common was that, you know, this building is gone for, you know, a long time. Often people citing the fact that we're, you know, the second worst in the state in terms of school facilities. Now here's where we get into some interesting things. So this is for the yes voters, and this is what I categorized as concern. So like people who voted yes, but then we asked, well, were you torn and what kind of put you on the fence? And we had much more content here coming from yes voters than we did from no voters. And this gives you kind of a sense of like people saying, I voted yes, but, you know, it'd be great if. And so I'd say the top one there was just kind of state of education funding, right? The school construction aid program, people really wanting that component to be locked down. Then the next two, it's a little, I was being a little cute here with these two, is you had a lot of conflicting sort of concerns around the size of the building. You know, is it too big? Is it too small? People kind of coming in on both sides of that, depending on where they see the district going. People just really wanting more mitigation of the cost, saying, I kind of held my nose and voted yes, but it would be great if this thing could just be a lot less expensive. And then people talking about the river corridor, the floodplain that the building is to be, the river corridor, yes, not in the floodplain, but I don't know that the message really got out about that, or maybe could have been some information going around about it. There's a big concern about the availability of affordable housing in the district. The turf field was a little bit of I'll call it a football. So this is something that we wound up cutting, but a lot of yes voters and no voters were saying you really should have kept that in. And one of the reasons you see a lot of support for the athletic programs in the school, and the turf field kind of people citing as needing that to kind of take our athletic programs to the next level, to host championship games, that sort of thing. Also, people were concerned about like not having as many options as they may have liked, or, you know, transparency of the process. And then really around, okay, this new building is great, but this is really all about education, and the emphasis really should be more on, you know, what goes on inside the building versus the building itself. So that was interesting. And here's some comments, some representative ones. I'll let you guys read those. I don't need to read them for you.
Thank you.
Another kind of page here of some of the yes comments. I just have two slides for each, so.
Ben?
Yeah.
Can you read those? I can't see it from back here, please.
I'd really rather not, Mark, did you come
Okay.
up?
I'll look at it at home, don't worry about it.
Do you wanna come up? You can read it on my computer if you like.
Not even from there, so don't worry.
You see here some of the torn aspect of, we've got people kind of on the fence.
Ben, can I ask, I didn't see these slides in the slide deck in our board book. Is that going to be available to the public so they can access it when they get home?
Yeah, I'll put them in the minutes. Apologize. I was working on them up to the meeting.
Our plan is to release them out to the communities as well through the same systems of communication, but we thought the board should have a chance to look at it first.
Received. Yeah, I just want to make sure that the public has access to this.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Everybody good with me moving on? Okay, so now let's look at some of the no voter rationale and concerns. So a lot more kind of rationale given here, I would say. By far and away, and this was interesting to me, that and I make a distinction here between 1 and 2, was the project amount, the 99 million was far and away the thing that was cited as being like the biggest reason for people to vote no. That's too expensive. And it took different kind of versions. The sticker price itself, we're just saying it's too extravagant, too big, too many extras are in the building. Different aspects were cited by different respondents, the theater, the double gym, some things that weren't even in the scope were cited as a reason for why they voted no, like a dome on the building. I think that was a rumor that went around communities. The turf field, I think some respondents thought that we did have a turf field, and that was the reason that they were citing for voting no. So again, that's why I was kind of saying that was a football. And then the next thing, here's the distinction, is that people spoke differently about the project making property taxes unaffordable, right? Some people just said it's too much, it's too glitzy, it's too extravagant. Others said taxes are out of control, right? And differently. One thing that's interesting to note was that you saw people kind of using the calculator on the yes side. You didn't see very many people on the no side saying, I ran my numbers and what came out I couldn't afford. Right?
I don't think there were any comments.
Yeah, I don't believe so. So that just kind of an insight around affordability. Then the belief that the current school can be renovated for less. This has always been, something that we've heard. We start our FAQs on the website with, why can't the building be renovated? A lot of the guidance that we've gotten from the architectural team around that, but that still is one of the most prevalent reasons. People saying, surely we could do it cheaper. We could renovate the building. The state education funding was obviously a big one. States construction aid program going offline. Second homeowners, kind of a related issue, was one that people talk a lot about, saying it's not fair that their taxes don't change as a result of the school bond passing. Woodstock voters, people who kind of identify, I mean, I think this was a major theme for them, not the only community, but just too many other big tax hits at the same time. This big increase in ed taxes, and then for Woodstock, the aqueduct, the sewer facility, or kind of the unknowns around that, people not being able to get their heads around what the overall tax impact were going to be. On the too big side, there were a lot of people who talked about the building being right sized for our enrollment. It's 450 currently. How are you going to get to 600? Don't believe, not believing the enrollment projections, or that you can drive that. And then, excuse me, okay, yeah, number 9, transparency, just kind of not trusting the process, no detailed costs being provided, and no options was a really significant one that we saw throughout the responses. People saying, hey, you just kind of foisted this thing on us at the 11th hour. And we didn't get to see any of the alternatives that were considered or participate in them. There was a very prevalent sentiment among no voters that the current school was not properly maintained, that more could have been done to kind of preserve its condition. The net zero geothermal stuff, a lot of voters, these are a couple of political ones in 11 and 12, people saying yeah, that green stuff, that's all political. You're pushing this agenda on us, get that out of there. Similarly, people believing that, not convinced that education would be improved by the new school. And then a lot of dissatisfaction, I would say, was expressed among the no voters with kind of the teaching experience in the, in the district. And then, a lot of sentiment around political agenda of things, some diversity initiatives, trans, BLM, those sort of themes. There was a pretty significant us versus them sort of a sentiment among many no voters, like, this is being foisted on people who lived here for a long time by wealthy newcomers, and it's going to push out people who lived here for generations. And so that was, definitely a theme. And then a lot of people were just put off by the promotions, right? The mailers, the yard signs, the kind of overzealousness, perceived overzealousness of people who were kind of voting yes and pushing that on people. Not a ton of kind of concerns expressed by no voters. They tended to kind of really center around the financial aspects, but some of the things where people were saying that they were on the fence was, you didn't see a ton of people challenging the need to do something, right? Which is interesting. For a long time, we've been doing this project and the need is needed to be established, right? But it seems to have been kind of across both sides. Everybody kind of recognizes that we need to do something. And then concerns about recognizing that it is, kind of a waste of, patching up the current school, certainly not all no voters, but that was a thread. And then people really talking about the importance of the school to the community, right? Saying like, we can't let it, languish. Here's a couple slides here on some, samples from no voters, comments. Let everybody read these. So here you see some of that, like, acknowledging the need, but not at this time or not this project. And then another page with 3 more comments from no voters. Okay, so you see a lot of those themes kind of coming through in the narrative there. Okay, and for the undecided voters, not quite as much rationale here. I was really surprised by the number of people who said, they had planned to vote, but forgot or just had a conflict or couldn't get to the polls. It makes sense, right? I mean, we have a lot of people who live in pretty far-flung places, and on March 5th, it was pretty rainy and slushy. Some people said it was too dangerous to go that day. Anyway, some of the same themes that we see from the no voters, some of the concerns. And here's some of the narratives around undecideds. And that first one, Elliot, gets to your question. So yeah, I think timing, taxes, obviously, we knew those were significant headwinds, so it's certainly coming through. Okay, so on the ideas and suggestions, I thought this was, pretty good list. This certainly isn't exhaustive of everything we saw in the 1,400 responses, but I think these are some of the best ones. And this is something, this first one is, we kind of rolled around in this, Carrie and I and a couple of the other people looking at the surveys. This idea, can we build something smaller or scale it back? And then, if the enrollment projections, come to bear, then add more at a later time. A phased or modular approach was something that you can, think about other schools that have seen growth and had the luxury of being able to do that. That's certainly would be less risk involved in, taking out like a $99 million bond up front. This is an idea, getting ski areas to charge a small fee, going directly to schools. That takes some coordination. I thought that was a good idea. These next two are not very, I don't think this group would appreciate them, but you saw it a lot in the surveys, people talking about, closing the school and sending students to other schools, consolidating our elementary schools to save costs. One idea was to do a virtual tour online, from those who felt that the school tour was insightful. And then, this theme around, that the wealthy versus the blue collar, elements of our communities, call for more dialogue, more connection between. Geothermal heat, solar, some people said get rid of it, others said it just needs to be better explained, from a financial aspect to understand, if it's better financially, then explain why it's better. And then, this is one that came up a few times, stripping out the project, kind of recognizing that the town of Woodstock's got the town hall project. I mean, separate kind of government entities, but a lot of people, probably Woodstock residents, had that idea. And then, some people saying like, hey, this is amazing that you've done this capital campaign and you've raised as much money as you have. This seems like the way to go. If you can invest more in that and raise more money, then you'd probably be able to get this thing through. So here's some of the comments from the people who had great ideas. Financial donations. And yeah, okay, great. So that's as much reading as I'll have, make everybody do tonight, from the survey responses. But just talking about next steps, from here, as we talked about at the last board meeting, we'll be looking for board members to be scheduling listening sessions in each member town to kind of keep these dialogues going and keep the generation of ideas. And then also we'll be providing board members from each town with the names of people who said, yeah, I want to be part of that process. So you can reach out to them as you're setting up those listening sessions and, get them to the sessions and get engaged. From there, we'll also be looking at being responsive to some of the calls for information, really developing materials about the process, the stakeholders who've been involved, what options have been evaluated, and kind of be responsive to transparency concerns. We've done all that stuff, people should know about it, who want to know about it. And then moving forward, working with the architect, the construction company, owners, reps to gather more information and what our options might be. And you heard Jim talk about the walkthrough at the building tomorrow to look at, pricing for renovations, being more current and transparent about those efforts. All right, that was dense. Appreciate everybody going along. Any discussion of the survey?
I guess my question, Bill, are you gonna provide, I guess you, in an email, you had said you're gonna provide some sort of a template or questions that we should.
For the listening sessions, yes, we will provide some structure for those people that want that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then, so the next part is, after we give that back to you guys, are you gonna consolidate that into another presentation or into something
Well, at
else?
least see what the common themes are and see if they line up. I mean, there were, I don't know, 1,100 comments, I think, that we read. I read them through twice. And, you know, just reading through, I think we had a pretty diverse amount of information here. And I don't think that the major themes will change a whole lot, but if there's some novel things that come out of your towns.
I mean, there will be reporting back to you. I guess is
Yes,
the question.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
So is the primary or is it sort of the exclusive goal or point of the listening sessions to do the kind of information and idea gathering and feedback that we kind of did via the survey? Or, I mean, I'm wondering, you know, it takes a lot to get, sometimes to get folks to come. When you get a lot of people coming to a meeting in a town, it's nice to be able to kind of utilize it as much as you can. And I'm just wondering to what extent, like, you know, we can have, I mean, when things are brought up that are, you know, to say it's a piece of incorrect information, you know, like to what extent ought we to, and will we sort of have the ability to, in that kind of listening section, you know, give information that we have. And I know you talked about sort of developing, I know there's already there's materials and stuff online, but I guess it's just kind of an open question, like how appropriate will it do people see that being in these listening sessions? Cause I don't want, you know, you don't want it to turn it into like a, you know, debate about details of something, which, you know, individual board members may not be as well versed in sort of all this stuff.
I guess I'd say that's not the goal, to kind of like set the record straight. It's really to get engagement and get people talking with each other at the community level. In terms of like getting attendance, I mean, a Zoom option, like all things that we do, I think is essential, right? In order to kind of maximize the participation. That way you don't have to have people, you know, traveling to, you know, make these things.
Right. And it's likely that there were people who never even knew about a survey that was online. It's possible. There are people who are, so those folks who don't answer surveys or didn't feel comfortable saying it in writing, they have a chance at a meeting to say what's on their mind and to take some good notes. And then, you know, we know there are some inaccuracies in the assumptions, but we're not gonna sit down and make a list and counter all the things that, like the turf field is easy. We had already taken that out, but some people didn't know that. So things like that certainly want to make very, very clear whenever we put forward a new bond vote for whatever it's going to support.
So one thing I just wanted to bring up is whether it's a bond or just the budget, I think everybody's got to be very facile and be able to convey the way that we pay for education. And it's still not understood by a lot of people. It's very hard to sort of wrap your head around it. I think there was an article in the Vermont Standard about Heartland, and they were talking about that had the school not even changed their budget at all, or actually closed the school, their budget would still go up by 20% because of the CLA. And I think people don't get it. And I mean, I think the way that's calculated is a really important problem. And people don't even think about it. I mean, they may think about it, but come August, when we all get our bills and they're up by 20 to 30%, and it's a lot of CLA stuff. And I think it's real important. I mean, and you do spend it when you spend a lot of time. That's really important. You just can't talk about the budget going up or this and that. It's the CLA on sort of multiplying that or dividing it, but it's.
Bob might be next.
Yep, I think Bob, you're next, and then Josh, and then Matt.
Yeah, what is the current status of our fundraising? I'd love an update on that report. And what, if any, changes are we going to make to our strategy there? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question, though. I haven't gotten an update from Marlena recently. The last one was just before the bond vote. I think we had another $50,000 commitment come in. I haven't heard of anything coming in post bond vote, but I don't know if that's, because it hasn't happened or just because I haven't heard. But we can certainly report out on that. And then in terms of the strategy, I think it's worth thinking about. That was one of the ideas that came up, right? Like invest more in fundraising and see if there isn't more to be had.
Josh?
So, I mean, we're just looking at that and all the discussions, it's all tax impact related, which comes back to more than just this bond. It came back to the CLA, which is why we're being held hostage by the state. And that's why people, I think, are saying the state needs to pay their way. They're over here saying, well, we're gonna pay for this district from that district, and we're gonna call this one a gold town, we're gonna call that one not a gold town. And I understand there's nothing we can do about it, but that's kind of the push that we need to make I think as a board. We want to get this passed to our legislatures and people that represent us in Montpelier, that we're not gonna stand for that. Like, this needs to change. I think that's kind of where we need to be as a board.
And I think that, Josh, you're bringing up the point that is really one of the most frustrating things for our communities. And what we've been talking about and with some other folks is activating some of our working groups, with one of them being a legislative strand who would just be getting people to write letters to our legislators saying, you need to put that funding back in. You need to deal with some of these things that are breaking the backs of every Vermonter. So I think, that's definitely one of the strategies that we will like to employ. I mean, it's kind of a step-to-step thing, but.
It is, but I think that's
but yeah.
Hopefully the learning and listening sessions will be covered by the media and it'll get the word out. And
Right.
I mean, I agree. I just think, like I said, I just think it's one of those points that,
Definitely,
not that anything we did wrong with this building. I think it's the culmination of 99 million on top of 33% in some towns. And
right,
I agree.
it's just like, where does it come from? I mean, our incomes aren't going up
right,
by those percentages.
yeah,
How can our bills go up by those percentages?
right. I mean,
And-
all of us in this room can be writing to our legislators at any time. I just wrote to my legislators about the AOE secretary. And I got a response, who said one of them concurred with my concerns, and I will continue to do that. I have grave concerns about that. That's another topic.
Yeah.
Matt?
I think this survey has given us really good results. And I think continuing with the listening tours is a great idea, especially just conveying the message that we're open to changing our strategy, to doing something different, to incorporating folks' feedback. And then I do think at some point we would pivot to some focused sessions, like on the themes that have been identified. It is so complex and there are so many issues that it seems as if you try to handle them all in one meeting, it just may not be productive. But it seems like the themes around could we renovate, or has the building not been maintained? That could be like one session, right? Just to talk about that. The issue of, is it the right size versus our enrollment? It seems like that could be a session. And then separately, just, the financing of it. Should the state give more? Should non-homestead give more? How does our property tax system work? And then I think something more specific for our user groups. It sounds like maybe the athletic community as part of our alumni maybe could have been brought in a stronger way. Those who are interested in the trades and vocational programs, those who are interested in maybe the arts and sciences and just sort of the educational value of the building, maybe that could be its own session. And then lastly, like the environmental benefits, that it clearly some folks didn't really understand the payoff of the geothermal and the solar. So anyway, I think it's great feedback. Still have a lot of work to do, but I feel good about, the possibility that we pass this thing down the road. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Lara.
Yeah, logistically, so you mentioned, also presenting this on Zoom, which is a great idea, but I'm gonna need some tech support. Because when we had the previous roadshow, I didn't have to worry about it, so, if Ryan and I, unless Ryan's willing to do the tech, we're gonna need to figure something out.
Lots of coaching for the sessions and, attendance and personal, support is not, out of the question. But I think what we talked about.
Tech support right there, who's one of our student reps that Aiden could jump right in. He's a Zoom master.
But I think what we've recognized is this, we've kind of been going forward with, the new build committee, the architects, the engineers, people, even community members who've been part of that thing for years, right? There's, for some reason, this, a little bit of a distinction between that group and the board, right? And people who are representing, the interests of taxpayers in your own communities, and we need people to really engage more broadly. That's the idea.
And the thought I have on the listening tours of your communities, in your communities, is that it should really happen pretty soon before school gets out and momentum is lost. And we all go into summer mode. So I'd be happy, Ben and I would be happy to talk with any of the board members about wondering about the logistics of that. We have another person who is interested in helping us with the structure of what those meetings could look like. You certainly, if you've got a big group of people in your town, you would need to have a timing mechanism. For example, you would probably want to say, if this topic's already been raised, could you wait? Or can you only speak one time until everyone's had a chance? Some of those simple things to structure a big conversation. Some of the towns are much smaller and less formal, and you probably don't need to have to worry about that too much. I mean, nobody likes to be the hammer, so you have to decide which one to use the hammer in your meetings, to use the timer as needed, so that everyone has a chance. And you're probably gonna hear the same things that, you just presented, but that's okay. For people to continue making their points if they feel they need to make that point. And there might be other suggestions that are helpful. What is it that they're looking for, that type of thing. So we'll try to get that together very soon. We have a meeting tomorrow, so maybe we can talk about that then. But certainly the best thing would be now to be identifying a good date and a place where you can have that meeting. We don't recommend combining it with another town meeting. We think it should be a standalone. Corinne?
I think it would be helpful too, sort of before we have those meetings, to have a sense for the board, to have a sense of the timeline, sort of the steps in the timeline following that. Obviously, we can't, have detailed steps because it's all sort of open at this point. But if people have questions about, like, one person wants to be involved in, like, they want to be involved in the design of the new design, or, what are the sort of kind of like what Matt was talking about? What are the pieces that are gonna then, following this information gathering, be, followed, what are the threads that are gonna be followed, and sort of what, does the board generally have a sense of, like, what timeline are we looking for? Are we looking at to, bringing something back?
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit, and realistically, we think the earliest probably would be in September. With, more information that's more detailed and offers, perhaps some options, including the renovation, depending on what comes back from that. And just the understanding that a renovation is probably a 20-year building and not a 60-year building, and that if you're looking at dollars to dollars, you're not looking at the same picture. And some things like that make it clear that if you choose this choice, this is what you get. If you choose this choice, this is what you get. So that it's totally transparent. And, I'd say at this point, there's a lot of things that can be under discussion. We will see the folks tomorrow and certainly let them know where we're at. If if they're not completely sure. And, you know, I don't know that we can say formally that this is what the vote's gonna be on September 15th.
Right.
We're not ready to say that yet. So again, we appreciate your insights. So if you have thoughts about that, feel free to email or make a call to us. The high school, middle school group will likely be meeting and starting up this, you know, taking on some of this too.
Mhm. Well, and on that, sorry, just to follow up, one of the pieces that I feel like we've talked about before, getting kind of some more data on, and I don't know if it's in the works, is around sort of surrounding towns, folks who are already sending kids to the schools, but not only sort of promoting, right, coming here, but I'm curious about like, what the, you know, if we're looking at trying to increase enrollment in surrounding towns, what does the competition look like? Like, what do those high schools look like that are the options for towns like Heartland and whatever? And so then how, when we're looking at, you know, the design or the curriculum or the, you know, the programs that we have in our new building, you know, how is that comparing to those surrounding, you know, high schools? And so how might we sort of see ourselves positioning well within that framework? So I don't know, like, you know, I know folks are thinking about that, but I'm not sure, you know, how we can take steps to sort of like getting information and data around.
Right, and that's again, along the lines of reviving some of those working groups.
Right.
Like configuration and enrollment might be able to take some of that investigation on it. It can't be just on
Yeah.
two people.
Right, right, for sure.
Elliot and then Anna.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we should try to bring out when we have these sessions is the discrepancy that Mark brought up about why the budget passed by such a large number, but this did not. And whereas in the state, 29% of the budgets didn't pass, and we
Right.
did pass.
Right.
So I don't know if that's something we can sort of draw out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's not a general sentiment about what's going on here. It's a,
Yeah, I mean, some people have said, well, you know, are these towns anti-education? I said, I don't think so at all, absolutely not by this budget vote, and that's not what we heard at all. We
Right.
heard many different things, but everyone recognizes the need for good education.
anyway.
Anna?
Thanks. I wanted to say how impressed I am, first of all, that y'all read that many comments. Based on what I read, that takes a lot of patience, and I really commend you for that. I want to strongly support Matt's approach, his suggestion of having categorical sessions as opposed to listening sessions. You know, the folks here in Reading that you know, took the survey, I don't expect that they're going to show up. And as has been mentioned, we expect a lot of the listening sessions to bring up similar sentiments that we got in the survey. And so I'm just wondering if, you know, moving forward in a more categorical, you know, reasons why folks are either undecided or voted no might be a better approach and use of our time than going out and, you know, duplicating this effort of collecting information. So here, for me at least, it feels much more productive and effective to go out and, you know, talk about a certain category of, you know, this is, and especially with the new renovation numbers that I don't expect are going to be any smaller than previous renovation numbers, you know, having a more structured approach to more of like an informational session with a listening part to it. I just feel like we've already done the listening part, and setting up a whole new meeting outside of town meetings and trying to reach folks that didn't already hear about the survey through the same portals doesn't seem like it's going to bring many new voices or new ideas. I'm not against listening. I'm all for it. I think it's really important. And I think that maybe going forward in a different approach would be a better use of our time. And cheers to Matt for coming up with that idea, because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, you could kill two birds with one stone if you did those sessions in each of our communities.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Anna. I'm gonna give you a call one day this week and chat further.
I look forward to it. I heard there's some storm coming in, so good luck reaching me with all of my family at home with me.
No, it's not gonna happen. I've already declared that, no more,
Can I?
no more
quote
snow
you?
days.
Can I quote the board chair on that?
Please.
I think it would have been nice to have that idea. I think it's a great idea. I think it would have been nice to have it before we announced the listening tours, but I kind of feel like we need to follow through with that. Cause we don't want people to accuse us of bait and switch or something like that. And what if there's a person in my town who would like to talk about a couple of the different ones, and they don't wanna have to go to 5 different meetings now to get all of their expressions
Right.
put out there. So I don't know if maybe the topical discussions could be somehow part of these meetings, where we say, okay, in the May meeting, we especially invite public comment on this.
It's a good idea. Yeah, I agree. People aren't gonna go to meeting after meeting.
Just
We
real
could
quick,
have-
from somebody who's on Zoom, can we not keep sharing the screen so I can see who's speaking
Oh,
better?
sure.
Thank you. Sorry.
Don't need to tell you that we're having a discussion.
Oh, thanks.
All right, Bob.
Yeah, my thought is, I like Matt's idea, and I agree that having a town, many town meetings on each one of these areas of discussion is probably out of the question. How about if we develop an outline specifying these individual areas of response from the survey, and then have one meeting or maybe 1 or 2 meetings in each town that's structured using this outline, which we develop and give to all of the board members for their individual. It'd be like an agenda for the meeting, not just an open, okay, so we're listening. What do you have to say? We would go through the outline item by item and ask for comments on each one of those items. Kind of a hybrid between Matt's idea and the listening tour. Thank you.
No, that's helpful structural ideas. Thank you, Bob. Anybody else?
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, now we're going to move into resignations and retirements. And the first person on our list is Megan Badusky, Hillington Elementary School teacher. And I'm wondering if Mary would like to say
Oh, wait,
something,
I'd like
or a
to-
board
I
member.
want to do it before Mary does, because hers will be better. So I do want to say, when I saw it come across on Friday, the 7 steps of grief started. And seeing Meg's name on there she was at Barnard, she came over to KES. She taught my 2 oldest. So we had her for 3 years in a row because she moved up in 5th grade. Very much part of the family. Post-COVID, she was before school with my daughter, after school with another daughter. This is I'm very sad, but as a working mom, I understand the conflict, I get it. I just hope that she understands that she will be welcomed back with open arms when she's ready to come back. She will be missed. Now, Mary, you can go.
Okay, well, it's hard to follow up on that. She is an exceptional teacher of literacy, particularly writing conventions. She just absolutely loves to teach writing to young children. And when you go into her classroom, when she's in the middle of it, the kids are so engaged. She's just exceptional at it. I especially appreciate how she knows all of her students. And she develops relationships with her students and her colleagues based on integrity, and everybody knows it and feels it. So when Megan takes on a project or an initiative, she gives it 110%. And so she's decided to give her new family member 110% of her time. And that new family member is going to arrive any day now. So speaking on behalf of everybody at KES, we feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to collaborate with her. She's been a tremendous asset and contributor to our work with students. And we wish her all the best as she grows her family, and we hope our paths do cross again in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie and Mary. So that was a resignation, and Karen Payne, elementary PE teacher.
You sure like to thank Karen Payne for 2 years of service. I think two things that stick out to me is she brought gymnastics back to PE in 5th and 6th grade, as well as she brought the entire school to participate in cross-country skiing. So it's great that we have ski runners and students have an opportunity to learn how to head downhill. But she was able to work with some community networks and bring all of the students out with an opportunity to learn how to cross-country ski as well. So we appreciate her 2 years, and in particular, those two things that she brought to Rockford Valley.
Thank you. And Johnny Trudeau, I assume is resigning. Garen, would you like to speak to him?
Yes, yeah, right, Trudeau for Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Trudeau joined Woodstock Union High School and Middle School 3 years ago with a really immensely challenging assignment, which was rebuilding the band program out of the shambles of the pandemic. So to bring that back. And he really had great success. He's built our bands back up to full capacity. He's performed bands have done well at several competitions. Our pep band is out with crowds at the football games and basketball games. It's an exciting addition he's done. And I'd say in general, Mr. Trudeau has been a positive presence on campus in many ways. He's been in our musicals, he supported students during the assemblies, and he's had his middle school jam band, which is pretty amazing to kind of pull back different rock albums or do with that group. So he's been great. He's moving on to Manchester, New Hampshire with his partner, who is going to be in the National Guard Band. So new music ventures for him. So thank you, John Trudeau.
Thank you. Audrey Richardson, I'm not sure somebody from the administration. Okay, great. Thanks.
Here's what I say for Audrey. Only a few people have worn as many hats at Woodstock Union High School and Middle School as Audrey Richardson. She has served our school as a teacher, an instructional coach, an interventionist, testing coordinator, and the MTSS coordinator. For years, Audrey, Jennifer Settle, and I have had a semi-annual meeting of trying to comprehend her job description and trying to find some coherence and shrink it in some ways. And we never could shrink it down, but we did come to really understand how skilled Audrey is at developing systems to support kids. And what I say here is, thankfully, this has been the focus of our work for the last few years, because she's leaving the school better able to gather and coordinate data, build effective support strategies, and serve students through a well-developed and comprehensive multi-tiered system of support. And that's really a big piece. And so that's a significant task, and it's going to have really lasting impacts on the school. So big thanks to Audrey for that work. She's been in the school for over 20 years.
I remember she started with us. She graduated for St. Mike's. Mrs. Harpster, who's no longer with us, hired her, and Audrey was a waitress at Ben Bentley's, and she just jumped right into being a freshman English teacher and just has worked with us all these years, took some time off to have children, got her PhD, and will be working with continue to teach for UVM as well as some other programs. So she's grown up with us. Gonna miss her.
And Colleen O'Connell is retiring, and I'd like to say something first about her. Colleen and I, since the day she came to Woodstock, taught side by side in the language wing. And we were true partners in crime, rebels without a cause, or maybe we did have a cause sometimes. But Colleen, and little known fact is Colleen grew up on the North Shore of Boston. I grew up on the South Shore of Boston. And we were born a day apart, celebrating our birthdays at the end of this week. And so when I saw the letter, I knew it was coming pretty much because she had told me she had to do the same thing I was doing, which is also retiring at the end of this year finally. And I just want to say she's a brilliant person. She is an unbelievable thinker. She is a big picture person, and I was much more of a small picture person. So the two of us would sit down to brainstorm a language teaching unit, and she'd have, one of these whiteboards that has 65 arms. And I'm like, okay, which of the 4 are we actually going to be able to do? And then together we would do these, what we thought were brilliant teaching units. But not only that, she's just a great person. She'll do anything for anybody. And she's a down-to-earth person and just a wonderful educator. And I know she'll keep educating. She just won't be doing it inside the building. So
Thanks, Gary. Now I'm gonna add to that too, because Colleen is a huge presence in this building. So here's what I said about Colleen O'Connell. First of all, it's fitting that we recognize Colleen and her impact on our school because she's in France right now, exposing another group of students to the wonders of engaging with cultures and places different from one's own. In her quest to globalize our rural Central Vermont school, Colleen has taken hundreds of students on trips like this one and brought hundreds of students from Spain and France to our community. Over the past 2 years, she has established ongoing relationships and vertical exchanges between our students and students throughout the French diaspora. She is trained to become a highly effective facilitator and rich, challenging dialogue to promote understanding and diminish ignorance across international boundaries. This is really important to Colleen. She's doing these exchanges not about, do you have a dollar, what food do you eat, but rather, how do you deal with women's issues? What are human rights like in your place? And these are rich dialogues with people in Tunisia, Lebanon, and across, like I said, the diaspora. These accomplishments may lead us to assume that making global connections is her passion, but she has told me throughout our long time together, and what her students experience every day, is that her passion is about joy. For more than 20 years, Colleen O'Connell has brought joy to our school in many ways, from dancing during lessons to playing guitar and singing with students at school assemblies. But we'll remember most is the joy of learning she radiates every day in the classroom. This is the special thing that Carrie was talking about, this radiance of joy. She's truly one of a kind, and I really wish her the best in retirement.
Okay. We need to accept the resignation, so somebody would like to make a motion to accept all of them,
I'll make a motion to accept them.
and, second?
So
Thank you. All in favor of accepting with regret these resignations, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? No. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for the kind words. Now we're going to go into our committees. The Finance Committee, do you have a presentation?
No presentation, just an update. We met on the 18th. Much of our kickoff agenda for the year was deferred. We tabled it to go into an executive session, but we'll meet again and we'll kick it off right next time.
Okay. Elliot, you're going to report on policy, and then I'm just going to step out for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes, so policy, we have 3 policies to discuss. We have 2 policies for the second reading. The first is the C9, which is the local wellness policy. And this is presented again. We did do some changes from, as this is second read, there was this discussed last time. We changed in the goals for physical education, we sort of clarified where the statutes are coming from that are recommending sort of the timing on physical ed. We did discuss some other options, and we decided to go with what the state is basically mandating. So we did that. And then there's another spot that we added where other school-based activities to promote, we added some text in there. So at this point, I would like to ask a motion to adopt this at the next meeting. So this is second reading.
Is there a motion to adopt at the next reading or at the next meetings? Sorry. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay. Next one is the F20 fiscal management and general financial accountability. Again, this is second reading. Again, just the idea is that it outlines lawful and transparent management of financial affairs. And just to clarify, this does include F21. So as part of this motion, I would ask that that we accept this for adoption at the next meeting, just as we did with the other one, but we also eliminate F21 at the same time because we don't need F21. It's incorporated into this policy.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the last one is a first read on capitalization of assets. And basically this is just a protocol for auditing, recording, and appropriately depreciating all our capital assets. It's been reviewed by Jim Fenn, and I'm asking for a motion to approve it for a second reading next month.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much. Buildings and grounds, do you have a presentation tonight or an update?
I'll give a quick update. It's not a presentation. We met on March 18th. The heating conversion project at the high school is nearly completed. There are 2 small wall units that need to be installed. We had a pretty long discussion about our vendor JCI that's installing the Metasys, which is the temperature control system across all the campuses. And when they were approached with our position that we wanted to essentially, use all means under the contract to find someone else to do the work. They asked to have until May 1st to complete the project. So the Buildings and Ground Committee asked Joe and Jim to get that in writing from JCI so that if they don't deliver the system by May 1st, we could then go into what is the other step under the contract, which is mediation. And if mediation doesn't work, then potentially litigation. So I think all in all, the committee was supportive of that approach, that they're going to do their best to get it done by May 1st. We talked about some needs to find additional money in our budget in 2025. So we looked at all the projects that were underway, looking to see if we could maybe free up another $50K for other work across the district. We started prioritizing some projects for fiscal year 2026, including some security upgrades for the buildings. And then lastly, probably the most important for this discussion right now is that we did pass a motion directing Joe to work with the administration on putting in place an emergency repair fund that would go into the 2026 budget. And we've proposed that fund, that reserve that we set up, that we contribute 5% of the district's operating budget each year. And the concept here is that if we don't build a new building, we need to prepare for the possibility of a catastrophic failure, and we need some money put aside to address that. And then lastly, we did go over some alternatives of how we would educate students if the building failed. There's still a lot of work to be done on that, so I don't have results to share at this point, but we've looked at whether we could bring some mobile units on into the parking lot, whether we could find other places to operate the school. That's it from Buildings and Ground.
Thank you, Matt. Anna, did you have a question?
I do, yeah. Matt, I've had a couple of folks approach me about the condition of the driveway at Reading Elementary, specifically the pavement. Is that on your radar, or is that something that I should contact Joe about?
I can answer the question.
Yeah, I think it's in this 2025 budget, so go ahead, Joe.
Brilliant, thanks.
Yeah, we'll be starting, hopefully as soon as school gets out, we'll have a new parking lot, by the end of August.
Awesome, thank you all so much.
All right, thank you. Are there any working groups?
New build's been covered.
Negotiations will have an update during executive session. Okay, we have to approve the minutes from the March 11th meeting.
I approve.
Okay, so Josh has made a motion to approve. Is there a second? Thomas, I think, is that the second? All in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, thank you. And then I think that was all one big group, yes. All right, we do have
Carrie,
another.
Can I just ask, do we still have student representatives in the room? And if they have any update on any student moves to assess the mascot?
Well, that is something we talked about. Our goal was to, with the mascot, we were gonna kind of like push that lead with the passing of the bond vote, which didn't happen, so we're kind of taking a new approach now. Social Action Club, we're trying to get everybody together, just the schedule and the way our times, our free periods work, where clubs usually happen. It's difficult, kind of all over the place right now, but we're trying to get students in to get ideas going. At the moment, I don't think there's a very set in stone plan for the direction we're gonna take now with the mascot. I mean, Owen, you might know more than I do, but I think that right now our goal is to get everybody together to discuss, among other things on the agenda for the Social Action Club, that the mascot being one of them, and also kind of the pool and other groups. I know the configuration enrollment group was working a little bit on that too, so kind of bringing everybody together, I think will be the next steps.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a project mainly for the spring. And I think we and the Social Action Club recognize that it's a touchy and sensitive subject on all sides, like the bond vote, and is only complicated by the bond vote temporarily not passing. So I think we'll be spearheading that through the configuration and enrollment working group, and then working in tandem with the Social Action Club and all the other student leadership mechanisms at the school in the next few months.
Okay. Let me know if you need some help getting the configuration and enrollment work group back together again.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
It's very wise. Okay, I think at this time we have an opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody who would like to express a concern or make a comment on anything they've heard, this is your opportunity.
Speaking as a member of the public, I am fully in favor of junior privileges and the juniors working really, really hard.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, please.
Anybody on the Zoom?
Also speaking as the public, if junior privileges get enforced, I want to not have the Saturday detention I got for skipping as a junior. That I actually spent with Carrie, if I remember correctly.
That's a wonderful memory. All right, I think then we need somebody to make a motion for executive session. All right.
I'll second.
John, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Take a couple minute break, please. And I would like somebody to make a motion to approve the negotiation settlement.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Well, thank you very much. I will report to the teacher negotiation team that the board has approved the settlement offer on the table. Okay, now we can reflect. We have trouble sometimes with reflecting, so let's try to reflect a little bit better. Anyone is welcome to offer anything they'd like to say in reflection.
Covered a lot tonight.
We did.
Good job.
I'd have to say that the report that you shared with us, Sherry, was really interesting and had a lot in it. I'm gonna go back and reread it because there's a lot more that, as you were going through it, it was really impressive in many ways. It showed the growth in the last 5 years.
I was really glad that you gave Cody the opportunity to speak on some really important work. And I was reflecting then that the quality of the interactions with the students and middle school teachers in that work, I think it's also reflected in what students see and the interactions and the stability of this group. I think makes me proud to be part of both of those.
Yeah, I think it's awesome with a daughter in 6th grade now going into 7th. I'm excited that she's gonna, and her peers are gonna get that, sort of focused attention on that area. It's like kind of just, it starts in elementary school, but, you know, the shifts that you start seeing, you know, right around that age, it's so important to have that reinforced, of, you know, mutual respect and not putting each other down.
All right, anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to give kudos to Ben and Carrie and Bryce for all that work you did on the survey. Unbelievable.
Thank you. It was quite the interesting reading. I read all the yeses first. I was feeling really good, and then I read all the no's.
I couldn't take all the notes at once. I had
Go
to
back
have scotch,
Thanks
some
for that.
Essex, more scotch, nose.
But it's good. Yes. I did.
I just want to say, I like the way that we as a group can evolve ideas and build off of each other in a respectful and constructive way.
All
I
right,
have
is-
a
Go ahead,
potential
go ahead, Matt.
suggestion. Maybe when we have a lot of time scheduled appointments, we encourage the central office staff to keep their presentations to a certain time limit, just like when Jim and Raf and Shayna and Jen present the paragraphs that they've inserted in the board book, maybe we keep that abbreviated, since we know these meetings go long and we have a lot of work on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Hey, Josh, and, all right, and is the clerk writing this down?
Yeah.
Farina, great, good job. All right, thank you, everybody, we are adjourned.